And now, it is my pleasure, my honor, to introduce the queen, America's queen of the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, Lesli Laughter.
So, why are you here? What is the challenge that you have? What is the change that you seek to make? What if you could design schools? What if you could hold the future in your hands? What would schools look like? What would it feel like to not be drained and constrained and limited? How would you make a difference in schools? That's what we're here to talk about today. Well, you've made a great first step by being here at our 806 Summit, so thank you. I am so excited. Can't believe he said all of that. Almost wanted to just bow and leave the stage. But this is an exciting time to be here. And I want to welcome you, but I also want you to really think about why it is that you're here. I know all of you have a change that you seek. I know all of you are adventurous and leaders. That's why you're here. That's why you're not on the beach somewhere at this moment. So today, we're going to talk about what we can do from this point up until the next school year starts. Can you believe this year's over? I can hardly believe that. I can hardly believe that we're looking at this. 2025 is staring us in the face. And so many changes are occurring and building, and it's ever evolving, isn't it? So, what can we do? You know, our schools grow with changemakers. That's what we need in our schools. And connecting the dots are what changemakers do. They're looking to see what's out there and looking to see how things fit together. And they're always connecting those dots. So who are those changemakers? They're you. That's why you're here today. You're leading with purpose. Changemakers always see beyond the boundaries. Just last night, I heard someone say, I don't care what the data says. I know in my bones that our students can do better. I know that we can achieve that. That's what changemakers do. They see beyond the boundaries. They're always looking at that vision. What's your vision? This is a time for you to reflect on that vision and to determine what it is that you want to do for this next school year. I know that many of you will say this, let's change the world, right? We're going to do that together. This is what the 806 Technologies mission is all about. It's to create a world of innovative schools together with you. If you're using any of our products or if you've had any of our professional learning, you know that this is key for our company. We want to move those compliance things out of your way. We want to get the busy work and the things out of the way so that you can do what you do best, and that's leading schools. And it doesn't matter what your role is. We have teachers, we have principals, we have central office administrators, we have district level, we have superintendents, we have state level. People that are here, it doesn't matter what your role is. You're a leader and you're a change maker. And so we want this time at this summit to help you build your own personal needs assessment so that this year can be even better than last. That's what it's all about. How? How do we do that? You know, the world's a big place, isn't it? How in the world are we going to change the world? When we look around the room here, there's a lot of power, but the world is a mighty big place, isn't it? So we're going to start way up here at the world, and we're going to zoom this thing in all the way until we get right here. Right here today. This is where it starts, at the Omni Star, right here in Frisco, Texas. This is where it begins. So in your time at the summit, I want you to really start thinking about who you are as a leader. What difference can you make? What change do you seek? What do you need to learn while you're here to walk away and make things even better than they have been before? This is kind of a unique time. It's a little short pause in time. And it doesn't mean that there's a pause in planning at all, because you know back at home, you know what's going on. Lots of things, right? And the next school year is being built right now as we speak. But it's a short pause in time for us. And it's a pause in time for us to really reflect inside on who we are as change makers and leaders, and how we can increase our influence. And that's what this summit is all about. It's that short pause for us to do an internal look at who we are and what we're all about. Now, you're at a very unique conference, and you are in for such a treat. I am so excited for you, but it's different. If you look around, at the people in the room, you see that this is a very boutique type of conference. That's by design. There are so many conferences that you attend that are huge, and it seems like when you go to those conferences, there's amazing things on the agenda, but they're pretty unrelated. And you go through there and you pick and choose your sessions, and you go to that session and you hear amazing things, but you never have time to digest it, because as soon as it's over, what do? You run to that next session because you want to make sure you get a chair in the next one. And it's just boom, boom, boom all day long, right? And then at the end of the day, you're just like, I'm so exhausted. I can't even think about what I learned in that first session. Well, this one's different. This one is a summit where we have strategically chosen some very key things. And I know some of you have looked at that schedule, and you probably already picked some things that you think, yes, that one applies to me, and this one applies to me. And I don't know about that one. That's probably not in my job description. But I'm going to encourage you to step outside the box. I'm going to encourage you to go to those sessions that you think, maybe that doesn't apply to me. And here's why. The more we learn about others and other roles and other situations, the better we are in our own. So sometimes we have to step outside that role and hear a perspective from someone else in order to grow in our own role. That makes sense? I want you to take a look just for a moment. You know, in our culture, sometimes it's not cool to look at another stranger in the eyes, right? And I know some of that's cultural, and I don't want to offend. But for today, I'm going to ask if we could just move that to the side. I want you to look around this room and make eye contact with some of the people that are here. Smile at somebody you don't know. Smile at somebody you don't know. Now, I'm going to ask you to stand up. Guess what's coming? Before the end of this summit, I want you to have handfuls of new friends and new contacts. And so right now, what I'm going to ask you to do is go find 3 or 4 people. I want you to shake their hand, look them in the eye, tell them who you are, and ask who they are. Where'd they come from? What's their role? Have a chat for just a short minute, and then I want you to find someone else. So that later, when we have these opportunities to sit and think, you've got somebody familiar to you that's new that you can go sit by and say, hey, can we talk about that last session? I had just this question. What are you thinking? That sound good? All right, I'm going to give you for just a few minutes. Go see those people. Don't talk to someone you know. Be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke. Your love life's the away. It's like you're Now, doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel good to have some new, familiar faces? I encourage you to continue that at this summit. You know, it really doesn't matter what our titles are. It doesn't matter at all. We are all here for one common purpose, and that's because we love children, and we care about their future, and we want their education to be the best possible. So it doesn't matter if you're talking with someone that has a position that seems to be higher than yours. Don't let that intimidate you. We're moving titles out of the way. We're moving all of that out of the way so that you have a comfortable place to ask questions, build connections, and learn from each other. Isn't it amazing what little tidbits you can pick up in all kinds of conversations? So I'm glad to see you up and talking this morning. That's awesome. It is the best thing when I have to say thank you several times to get you to come back together. That is a real positive and a plus. It's time to think, and that's what we're doing here. James Clear is one of my very favorite authors, and I know many of you have probably read Atomic Habits. If you have not, I encourage you to read that book. He makes me think. He makes me think a lot. And one of the things that he says about thinking is that we don't do enough of that we don't spend enough time really thinking and paying attention to the things that are important to us. And that we don't do that in an optimal way. But when do we have time to do that, right? This is your opportunity to spend that time thinking, and I encourage you to do that while we're here. One of the things that I admire about my oldest son, Ross, is that he does this. He, of course, is the CEO of our company, and he is constantly slammed with phone calls and messages and people wanting his attention and just all the things of running a company. And what he does is he builds time into his schedule, and he moves away from the office. He'll go to a coffee shop, or he'll go someplace where just nobody knows where he is. And all he does is think. He doesn't have an agenda. He's not catching up on emails or finishing reports or doing any of those things. He is thinking about the company and where he wants to go. Additionally, with that, we do that with our leadership team in the company. We do that 4 times a year, where we are totally removed from the company. We're by ourselves, and we spend an entire day thinking about the company. What's going well? What do our customers say? Where are their pain points? Are we helping them? What do we dream about for educators? What can we do to make their lives better? We spend that time thinking, and you can talk to anybody on our leadership team. Those are the most powerful days that we have. All of us leave there so energized and ready for the next step. So I encourage you to find times where you can do that. But you know, as a school administrator, I always used to say that if I could just slow the world down just a little bit for just a short amount of time, I know I could be a better administrator. But my snail thinking always ended up kind of like this, except it was always on a hill, and it was going downhill as fast as it could. So I was just hanging on for dear life, and it didn't seem like my thinking ever went anywhere. So with this summit, we've got an opportunity to do something different. And I'm going to challenge you when you're thinking about your needs assessment, and that's what you're doing here. I'm going to challenge you to 3 personal commitments. Here's what I want you to think about during this summit: to be centered, to be equipped, and to be agile. You have a sheet in front of you there that has those 3 pieces on there, and you'll notice that there's a square where you can write your thoughts, your comments, your questions. And I know some people don't like to write on forms because they like to keep those to take them back. We've got plenty of extra in the back, so write all over this one. On your way out, you can pick up a clean one in the back, or you can see me later, and I'm happy to give it to you. But this is for you. You'll see that there's a few other things on this page, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But nobody's going to see this. It's not graded. This is just a place for you to record your thinking about these 3 areas: to be centered, to be equipped, and to be agile. And the reason for that is this: we want to multiply our influence. And those 3 things help us with that. We're going to go through those here in just a moment. But multiplying your influence is important as a leader. No matter what role you're in, we want these things to occur to multiply our influence. I want you to think for just a minute. Have any of you ever been to a professional golf tournament? Anybody ever been to one? Oh, a few people. That's awesome. I have not. I think they would probably kick me out. And here's why. I'm encouraging. I want to clap, and I want to tell people they're doing a good job, right, when that's happening. But I want you, if you haven't been to one personally, have you seen one on TV? Seen a golf tournament? Okay, all right. I want you to show me how you're allowed to encourage the golfers as they're golfing. What do they do? How do they clap? Everybody do that for me. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yes. We can't even hear you, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's think about a little different setting. Let's say that you have a 5th grader, either your own child or a grandchild or a favorite niece or nephew, and you've been to their school, and they've just been in a play, and they finished that play. How would you applaud in that setting? Show me how you would do that. All right. All right, that's a little better. That's a little bigger influence, isn't it? In my opinion, because I'm all about the noise and the action and the movement. But now, guess what? We're at the World Series. The World Series. And the bases are loaded, there's 2 outs, and your child comes up to bat. And guess what? Home run over the fence. Now what do? Let me hear you. Woo! Yeah. All right. That's what we need with influence. That's what leaders need to do. We need to make sure that our noise is so loud that we're drowning out all of the other, all of the negativity, all of the stuff that keeps hitting us. You know, it just seems since COVID, things have been tough, haven't they? And negative. And we need to be the ones that are making that noise loud enough to let people know there are good things going on in our schools, right? All schools. It doesn't matter what that accountability rating says. There's still good things going on in that school. And we need to make sure that that message gets out there. Multiply the influence. In this pause, we want to refuel. We want to get that energy back so that when we go back to school, that we can lead, that we have a plan, that we know where we're going. You can't build good schools if you're not ready for those schools. So this is your opportunity to get there. So let's talk about this, about being centered. What does that mean? I want to start with this because being centered is about vision. It's about vision. It's about knowing where it is that you want to go. That vision, keeping that vision in front of you. Everywhere you go, that vision is in front of you. And working that mission. That mission is moving your feet. You know why you behave the way you do every single day. That's about being centered. Is being a school leader all about kids? Sadly, it's not. There are lots of other things that come into play. But if we can keep that vision and mission in front of us, then we can stay on the path where we need to be. Here are 2 definitions for being centered. The first one we've just talked about, having that vision and mission, and core values. Making sure that the things that we are doing are aligned with our own personal core values and the core values of the organization where we work. But look at number 2, being mentally and emotionally confident, focused, and well-balanced. That's where our schools will succeed, when they see the leaders around them feeling confident and focused. That's where we're going to have our best schools. So it's about being centered. Do you remember Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple? This is one of quotes from him. You know, he said, being focused and centered and well-balanced is not necessarily just being focused on the things that you want to do. It's also making sure that you are focused on those things that you're not going to do. So as you think about your school year coming up, we need to be just as prepared with those things, the things that we're going to say no to, as we are the things that we're going to do. For too long, our schools have been focused on too many things. When you look at their improvement plans, they're huge. Some of them are thick. Oh my goodness. You know, we have some districts that have hundreds of strategies in their plans. That's not being focused. So we need to make sure that we are moving things out of the way and just being centered on the things that are really going to make a difference. It's all starts with working on the school, because when we're working in the school, it's hard to see it, right? That's when all the stuff comes up. So the problems that we're working on in the school need to be connected to that bigger vision. So when you're looking at a problem or something comes up, it always goes back to, okay, we're working on this piece. How does that align with our vision? Does it align with our vision? If not, then we need to move it to another place. As leaders of the school, the view that you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you operate. It affects your life. Is that going to be a positive one? Is it going to be aligned? Is it going to make a difference? Or are we heading down a different path? And what does success look like? And when we accomplish that goal, how are we going to know that we've accomplished that? You know, these questions are as old as time. You've heard them over and over and over. But if we can't define what success looks like, we're not going to get there. So what does success look like in your role? The second thing is to be equipped. Now, does that mean to have all the answers? No. We'll never have all the answers, will we? But we need to be ready for those. Here's 2 definitions for being equipped. One says to be supplied with the necessary skills to implement a plan. So that means you got to have a plan, right? You got to know where you're going, and you got to be able to know what pieces need to be in place in order for that plan to succeed. So you have to have a plan. We can't fly by the seat of our pants. None of us have positions that would equate to someone that works at the mall, for instance. You know, they when they work at the mall, they wait for the customers to come in and then they respond to needs. Sometimes people think schools are like that. But you know what? We've got to have a lot more preparation than that. We wait for them to come in, but we want to know who's coming in, and we need to have a plan for them. And we need to know what the next steps are going to be. The second part of this is to be prepared mentally to lead, support, and monitor continuous improvement. Sometimes when I'm talking to people and they want to know what my book is about, and I talk to them about continuous improvement, immediately they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't do that. You know, that's somebody else's department that builds that plan." Okay. Well, the plan is a tool. That is not continuous improvement. Everybody is involved in continuous improvement. And it doesn't matter if you're retired or if you're working. I hope you're always continuously improving, because if you don't, what's the alternative? Uh-oh. We're not going to be moving, right? And to prepare mentally again to support and monitor. So it's all about thinking about that continuous growth all the time. Educators are notorious for trying new things, right? I bet if you started thinking about what's going to happen in the fall at your particular school or district, that you can think of at least one new thing that's going to occur. My encouragement to you is to build a needs assessment, a good needs assessment. And that's not just the accountability ratings. If you just focus on the performance ratings, what you're saying is the only people that need to improve are the students. Continuous improvement is about all of us. So build a good needs assessment. Spend the time that it takes to really understand the problems and then make good decisions. And once you make those decisions, stay the course. There are so many different ways to improve schools. And there are amazing products out there that will help you. All of them work if we will implement them well and allow the time that is needed there. Often we'll do something new, and then at the end of the year we start getting nervous because the results aren't coming in. Oh my goodness, we spent this much money on it. It was going to help us in reading, it was going to help us in math, and we're not seeing that. What are we going to do? Oh my gosh, let's drop it. Oh, they're doing that. Let's do something different. But what I encourage you is stay the course. And when those naysayers start coming around and the heat starts piling on, put on your hat. Just deflect it. Stay there. Stay the course and stay strong. That's going to help our students. We don't want to be this, the not so cool cat. Always looking for the next shiny thing. That doesn't work, does it? Constantly changing. Innovation doesn't always come from something new. Sometimes it's just a different perspective. And this would be the year and the time to be thinking about that. We have fewer staff, we have less money, and it would be so easy to get into that doom and gloom, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh, we can't do it this year. But sometimes it's just a different perspective. And that's the beauty of being at a learning summit like this, because someone else can give you a little different perspective just from a nugget of a piece of conversation. So I encourage you to look at that with a different perspective and find someone who can think differently. Last night at dinner, we had a conversation about Taylor Swift and her new album. And my first response to that was, I don't like that album at all, because I've listened to some of the lyrics, and I thought, that's not cool. But I was sitting next to someone who is quite a bit younger than I am, and listened to her perspective of what the lyrics were actually about, and the satire that's in there, and the reason they were written the way they were written. It gave me a totally different perspective to that. And I do admit, I'm going to go back and listen to it again with different eyes and different ears. So perspective can make all the difference in the world. So sometimes it's not about doing more. Sometimes it's about looking at where we are and doing things differently. Doing fewer things wrong. How about this beauty? Did any of you have one of these? All right. I got one of those when I went to college. That tells you how old I am. I was so excited and so proud of that thing. It was probably a 19-inch screen. I just thought it was the best in the world. And it sat on a metal stand. Oh, it was so cool. I was the hit, of all my friends, because I had this TV, and it was color. It was so awesome. Had a remote control, too. Me. But and how many of you remember the snow on there? Is anybody as old as I am? When the channels went off at night, you got this snow from the analog. Oh yeah. And we got 3 channels. That was so awesome. We had a bunch. This is very different than what's in my home right now. One of the unique things that makes it so different is that TV was manufactured in the United States. The one that I have now was manufactured overseas. And back in the 70s, we had a real shift in manufacturing in the United States. After World War II, the United States really flourished for a while, and manufacturing grew, and there were, lots of advances here. But then all of a sudden we had the oil crisis, and there were several other things that happened in the 70s. And and it changed manufacturing in the United States. One of the big things that caused a shift in the US was competition from overseas, particularly Japan. And one of the things that they were doing in Japan was trying to do fewer things wrong. When they were manufacturing in Japan, automobiles, for instance, Honda was really big coming on the scene then. Honda was building smaller cars, and they were lighter and they were fuel efficient, which was great in the United States because of the oil crisis, because our cars in the United States were huge and heavy and gas guzzlers. And so, it made sense for people to start shifting the other direction. But it wasn't because Japan had smarter employees, or, they didn't go, it wasn't because of technology and all of those things. It was because they had a focus on doing fewer things wrong. They were looking for efficiencies in where they were. They were looking for ways where, as they were manufacturing, the workers didn't have to make so many moves. They were streamlining things. And I think that this is a time that we need to look at that in our schools. We've had the blessing of having so much extra money, but now that money has come to an end. So it's time for us to look and see what we're doing and how can we do fewer things wrong with the assets that we have. James Clear again goes back to this, and he says there's a difference between getting better and not getting worse. It's a very important distinction. And so I think in these times, this would be a great thing for us to remember and consider. Changemakers make decisions. They connect the dots. They don't leave things undone, because that's where the chaos and the uncertainty comes in. They know where they're going. They may not have all the answers, but they have a plan, and they are moving forward with that. They know how to prioritize so that not everything is important. They know how to put pieces in place, and that not everything has to be completed. If you have something that you just can't make a decision about, line it up. Where does that fit with the mission, the vision, the core values? Does it align with those pieces? And if it does, prioritize it. If it does not, then we need to move that piece away. Then the last piece that I want to talk about today is about being agile. And when you think about being agile, you think about, or at least I do, I think about athletes and thinking about these three and how they are able to move. But being agile is more than that. It's more than supporting a goal or initiative. It means that you have a deep commitment to that initiative. And you can see that in these athletes' faces, that they have a deep commitment into doing things well. Here's your definitions for being agile. We want to be able to move quickly and easily, both physically and mentally. So that means we have to take care of ourselves. You're going to hear from some amazing speakers over the next couple of days that are going to talk a lot about this. And I'm excited for you to hear those. I can't wait to hear them myself. The second part of this was something that really made me smile, the second definition, because I went to the dictionary to see, what does agile mean? And look what it says in number 2, managing strategies by the division of tasks into short phases of work with frequent reassessment and adaptation of plans. What is that? That's continuous improvement, isn't it? So we want to be agile. In our company, when we're talking about the technology, building the software, all of the pieces, they use that term agile. And they have a whole Gantt chart of dividing those tasks up by the developers and who's going to work on what part and when they're going to work on it, when it begins and when it ends. So that's all about continuous improvement. So I love that our dictionary talks about that as well. It's about this. It's about knowing that continuous improvement cycle. Now, I know that many of you are from different districts. And when you're thinking about your continuous improvement cycle, there's some different terminology in place. But this is the cycle. And if you look at it, I know that you'll be able to put your parts in there as well. If you'll notice in this continuous improvement piece there, that vision is up at the top. It's black and it's big because it's bold, and it is the key. We have to have that vision out in front. And then there's a little thin gray line right underneath that divides it into two other segments. On the left is all about needs assessment. And needs assessment is every bit as big as what's on the right. And I like to call that what's on the right the GPS, because that's the action. Just like the GPS in your car, it guides you and tells you where to go all the time. But those are equal. And many times in schools, we don't see those as being equal parts, but they are. So it's important to have a great needs assessment in place. The other thing I would point out to you is in the needs assessment on the left-hand side, notice strengths and problems. Those are equal. I have to tell you that I've been really guilty in writing plans several years ago where when it came to talking about the strengths, we would just say, okay, what are we doing well? Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Put that in, move on. But we've got to do a better job with that. One of the trends that we're seeing right now is an assets needs assessment, where the strengths are included in that needs assessment, because we know when we build on people's strengths, they can move further. I'd love to have conversations with you about that. I think that's an exciting piece. But notice how the rest of this, everything ties together. Your problem statements influence those performance objectives. They need to be aligned. You wouldn't want to try to improve something if you don't have an identified problem. The strategies point right back to that performance objective. Your root causes go right to the strategies. You can't get better if you don't know about the root causes. And one thing in that area where we've been led astray is we've been told for years that there is a root cause. You have a problem, you find the root cause. That's not true. Problems have multiple root causes. We have to identify those and know which ones are the roots and which ones are the contributing causes. If you have a problem that you've been working on multiple years in a row and it's not getting better, I promise you, you don't know all the root causes, or you may be working on a contributing cause and not a root. So that's an important piece. Changemakers that connect the dots understand these pieces, and they know how to move forward with that. So on your page that you have, also on the right at the bottom, you'll see that there's a theory of action. I know you've done theory of action. Everybody's done that. We started that in college, right? But that theory of action is really important. And this is a personal theory of action for you. This should be part of your needs assessment as you're thinking about how you're going to be a better leader this next year. There's not anything magic about the three parts. You know, if I implement these practices, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to get these results, 1, 2, 3. Yours might be 2, it might be 4, but it probably wouldn't be any more than that. But that's something that I want you to think about all during this conference. What is my theory of action for this next year? I know none of us wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to be status quo today. Not going to do a thing different, right? Anybody like that? I didn't think so. We all want to be better at our jobs. And so that theory of action is really important. You all have one. I'll guarantee you do, but it's probably right here, right? How many of you have a theory of action, a personal theory of action that's written down? You will have one? Excellent. Excellent. So write it down. Share it with someone. Why would you do that? Accountability, absolutely, because that makes you more accountable and it makes you more apt to get that accomplished, right? So that theory of action is a very important one. Carry it around with you. Ask somebody if they have their theory of action during the summit and see what you get. We're all about this, all about connecting the chords, the strings, making things work together. And notice that this theory of action is written a little stronger than the one that you have on your page, because it says, I commit to implementing these actions well. That means you've thought it through. You know what kind of training, what kind of rest, what kind of intervention or whatever it is that you need to be ready. You know what that means. And then notice the bottom, so I will achieve these results. It's about that personal theory of action, because when you're good at what you do, your influence is going to be multiplied, and you're going to make a bigger impact on your school and your community. That's what we want it to be about. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is this piece right here, to reframe. Kind of hinted at that a little bit in talking about making sure that we don't move into a negative environment because of the lack of things. And, you know, we can't control a lot of the things that happen to us. We can't control what the legislature does. Yesterday we learned about a lot of changes with Edgar. We can't control that. Just like in the classroom with a teacher can't command children to behave. It's not about that. It's about how the teacher responds when they don't behave appropriately. So it's all about that response and responding and doing things differently. So in this reframe, I want to tell you a story about this little guy. Isn't he cute? Yeah, he's adorable. He's my grandson. Yes, his name is Ben. And this was last summer. Last summer, Ben was a kindergartner, and he played t-ball. He was so excited about t-ball. See, notice his little glasses on top of his hat. He's got his bat in his backpack. He is ready to go. And this was his first t-ball game. So when it was time for Ben's team to get out on the field, and they all go out there. Can you see the diamond in this picture? If you can, you are so much better than I, because I could not figure it out. They had so many positions I couldn't recognize. They were all out there. But to give you a little bit of perspective here, way over here on the right, that's the coach who is pitching to the batter. You can't see the batter that's off the screen here. But I want to show you a couple other guys because I just love this. This little guy out here is eating his glove. He's having a snack during this one. And look at his friend beside him. He hadn't figured out that the actions go in the other direction. They're just adorable when they play, aren't they? So it just so happens at this first ball game that Ben's team was first up to bat. And they lined the kids up alphabetically. So B for Ben, he was the very first batter at the very first game. So here's Ben, and he's ready to bat. Now, what happens is that coach will throw 2 balls to them. And if they don't hit it, then they get the tee up there, and they're allowed to hit the ball off the tee. So the coach threw his 2 balls, and Ben missed both of them. So he got his tee up there, and he turned back to hit that ball, and bam, he hit it. It was so exciting. He took off towards first base, and he was running as fast and hard as he could. And we were all so excited watching that boy run to first base. But such an interesting thing happened. As he got closer to that first base, he started slowing down. And by the time he got to first base, he was a puddle of tears. It was just so interesting. And there was a coach standing there on the sidelines watching, and he just walked right up over there and wrapped Ben in a great big bear hug. But to back up, looking again at this picture, notice all the parents that were there. And these are not all of them. There were others too. You know how they come for kindergarten. They bring grandparents and next door neighbors, and everybody go there. That's why I was there, you know. So there's a whole crew of them. And this was the first game, first batter. So Ben didn't really have any experience with what's going to happen. As soon as he hit that ball, everybody started hollering, Both sides. It didn't matter whether they had a kid on the other side or not. Everybody was like, yeah, this is great. So when the coach said, Ben, what is wrong? He said, everybody's hollering at me. What did I do wrong? Oh my goodness. That was a perfect time for a reframe because he saw that as being a very negative thing. So the coach explained to him, no, honey, they are cheering you on. They are excited because you hit the ball. You did it right. You ran all the way to first base. We are so excited for you. So what happens when you reframe, when you hit those times, when it feels really low, then we want to look at what is the creative opportunity now. And that coach took a creative opportunity to really explain things to Ben and say, babe, when they're hollering like that, you just run like lightning because that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I wish so much that I had a video of this kid, but I do want to show you what he looked like afterwards. I wish that I had a video of him coming out of the little dugout to go over to bat because he did this the whole way. As he came out of the dugout, he had to walk by some parents, and he was doing this. He was so pumped to get up there and do it again. It changed his life. And that's what we can do as change makers. Be centered, be equipped, and be agile. Be that link that puts things together. We are the people that holds everything together. We are the people that makes a difference for kids. That's who we are. You are here at so much more than an event. We don't want you to leave as a stranger. You're ours now. We're family. We're friends. We all want to learn and grow with you. And we encourage you to do the same. Make sure you spend time talking. You're going to have a great break here in just a minute. Find those friends that you talked to this morning and talk more. Add to it. When you go somewhere, when you're out in the breaks, go sit by somebody you don't know and say hello. Just find what they're doing. Ask to see why they're here. What is the change that they are seeking? Don't worry about not being the most interesting person in the room. That doesn't matter. Be the person who's interested in others. Hear their stories. Those conversations will occur, I promise you. We're all here for the same reason. So let's change the world. Let's change the world together. There's no limits to what we can't do. There's more power in this room than anywhere else, I guarantee you. So we're going to create a world of innovative schools together. Thank you very much. Thank you.